Hello, everyone. We're about to start our very last session of this exciting meeting. And I hope you will enjoy our discussions about what we are doing and what we have been doing and what we are going to do around MPS around the globe. And we will have a great panelist on the stage in a moment. From different countries, from different regions representing MPS. But before we talk to them and ask their questions, we would like to show you a short video where they represent their region, MPS activities in their regions, what has been done and what their challenges and opportunities in their regions. So please start the video and enjoy the movie.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Megan LaFollette, and I'm Program Director at the North American 3Rs Collaborative. Today, I'm honored to give a microphysiological systems status update for my region. As you may know, MPS use is rapidly advancing in North America. This is evident by the many special interest groups dedicated to various areas, including developers, end users, standards, the summit, databases, drug screening, and more. There are also many developers that are headquartered in North America, 20 of which that are involved directly in my group. We also know that many end users in our region are already using MPS for internal portfolio decision-making. These decisions span across a wide variety of contexts of use, from target identification to drug safety and efficacy and more. This figure does come from developers in both North America and Europe, but I believe it to hold true for North America alone. In terms of regulatory status, we know that USA regulatory agencies are generally supportive and receptive to MPS. And we know that MPS have successfully been used in IND studies for safety assessment. Beyond safety, we also know that the FDA has accepted label expansion using only MPS efficacy data. Despite this, no MPS have been formally qualified by US regulatory agents, and so gaining consistent and clear regulatory acceptance is a critical challenge for the field. In part due to this need for validation, comparative species of MPS are a high priority for development, although liver, neuro, and kidney MPS also rank high for end user interest. Now, just to introduce my group briefly, the North American 3Rs Collaborative is a nonprofit whose mission is to advance science, innovation, and research animal welfare through collaborative 3Rs efforts. Our MPS initiative seeks to increase adoption and regulatory acceptance of MPS to further the 3Rs. We're unique in that we focus primarily on MPS developers with commercially available systems combined with a few additional members, and you can see all of their logos here. And we focus on 4 key efforts: interfacing with end users, primarily the IQ MPS affiliates, advancing regulatory acceptance, creating a technology expo, and general education. You can find our resources on our website, including both previous educational and regulatory presentations. And also stay tuned for our 2 publications, including a commercial technology overview and regulatory guidance from the developer's perspective. Finally, I do want to highlight that we've created a user-friendly technology hub that features developers and currently can be sorted by tissue type. And with that, I look forward to the roundtable questions and invite you to email me with anything that remains after the session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I hope you had a great week at the MPS World Summit. My name is Peter Loskill. I'm heading the Department for Microphysiological Systems at the University of Tübingen in Germany. And today I have the honor of introducing the European Organ-on-Chip Society, EUROX, to you, for which I currently serve as the chair. EUROX is a non-profit, independent organization which was established to encourage and develop organ-on-chip research. We launched the society in November 2018, and nowadays we have more than 500 members from more than 30 different countries all over Europe, but also stemming from all over the world. The society is governed by a board of 12 elected members, And we are supported by a regulatory advisory board, which is chaired by Maurice Whelan from ECVAM, and an industrial advisory board, which is chaired by Pelin Kandarioglu from GSK. We also have an alliance with the International Society for Stem Cell Research, ISSCR, on our home journal, Stem Cell Reports. And all in all, we're trying to foster interdisciplinary and intersectional collaboration. What does that mean in concrete terms? We're working on implementing the Organ on a Chip roadmap, which was established as part of the Fed Open Project ORCID a couple of years back. It's a roadmap that was put together by a number of stakeholder workshops in Europe focused on the development of organ on a chip research in Europe. I'm not going to go into detail. If you're more interested in that, I'd like to refer you to our website. One of the other things we are doing is our annual conference. Here we merged multiple conference series that were happening in Europe before we launched the society. The aim is to have a low threshold access, which is affordable for early career researchers, and to give plenty of time for interacting and socializing. We've organized 3 conferences so far. In 2019, in person, before COVID, in Graz, chaired by Thorsten Meyer, where we had more than 200 participants. In 2020 and 2021, we had to go online. We had to chair Christine Mummery and Maria Tanya, and we had more than 400 participants and very nice keynotes and also plenty of discussions, although it was online. This year, we have the upcoming conference in a couple of weeks, which will be in Grenoble in France on 4th and 5th of July. Next year, we will be co-organizing together the MPS World Summit in Europe, in Berlin, in Germany, and we're hoping to see all of you there. If you're interested to learn more about Eurox, please visit our website or follow us on social media. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ben Moz, and today I'm going to talk about MPS status and update in Israel. So before we start, a little bit about Israel. Israel is in the Middle East, about 15 hours flight from here in New Orleans. Population of about 10 million people, 9 universities, at least 20 research groups working on MPS, at least 3 companies, and numerous governmental initiatives. Recently, we established the Israeli Organ on a Chip community. It includes about 20 groups or a little bit more from 9 different universities, and there is a really good collaboration between the groups because some focus on sensor development, platform development, IPS, disease modeling, and it is very diverse and good communication. Now let's talk about how we can fund some chips. So there are numerous of governmental initiatives. For example, recently there was a $40 million initiative for bioconvergence, $10 million for biochip program, which I'm part of it, for example, and for example, alternative technologies for animal models. And there are some industrial initiatives, such as big pharmaceutical companies, such as Teva and other companies that actually provide sponsored research. Obviously, there are also VCs and nonprofit organizations that can also support such funding opportunities. So let's talk about the implementation of these technologies in Israel. And basically, mostly it is used for disease modeling, drug discovery, and recently it is also for basic research. The main end users currently are academia, although the big pharma companies are trying to implement and to create organs on a chip units in their pharmaceutical company, but currently they are mainly do it as a sponsored research. There is no regulatory agency in Israel for organs on a chip. And basically, obviously you can get these technologies from the groups here in Israel, but the commercial platforms are available we don't have local agencies, but we can obviously buy them directly from the supplier. It is available for the public either through conferences, or it is being published in open source. So how our group actually contributes. So as you all know, organs on a chip is a very complicated technology sometimes, and you need to know how we want to make it that it will fit into standard lab tools. So what we did, we use a 3D printed chip that can integrate with the standard well plate. And therefore, you can take a standard well plate and to create it as a chip. And then you can have a customized chip that can fit to all your needs. Last thing is the challenges on the international society, mainly standardization. We need standardization. And this is a global challenge, and this is one of our challenges as well. So thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Hu from China. I'm the Dean of School of Biological Science and Medical Engineering in Southeast University and the Director of the State Key Laboratory of Bioelectronics. I'm also the founder of Chinese Organoid and Organ-on-Chip Association and an organ-on-chip company. The startup of Chinese Society of MPS is a little bit late, which just started this year, but it grows very fast. By now, we have about 400 members in 100 different affiliations, including universities, research institutes, hospitals, and companies. The major founder of MPS are the government, including Chinese National Science Foundation, Ministry of Science and Technology, and the local government. The support also comes from industry and the VC funding. And we are glad to see that more and more startup companies appears recently. Most of the research and the products are focusing on tumor, skin, and recently, brain has also attracted a lot of attentions. MPS in China is anticipated to getting applications in drug discovery and disease model. Last year, Chinese FDA approved using microfluidic and organoid model for drug evaluation, which would be a big step for MPS in China. Technology and product standards are also being proposed and will be set up soon. The first proposed national standard in China is the skin-on-a-chip, which is hoped to be funded for a 2-year development. The commercial resources in China are limited. Only a few companies, such as EverTarget, can provide. We also established a public database. As you could see, the website with underline, the address is www.organchip.cn. The major challenge is to develop international standard and push forward technology and expanded application. So we need to communicate and cooperate. In the last few years, we have organized 4 times international conferences on MPS. Dozens of members here also attended our conferences. I hope Chinese MPS Society can have some interactions with the international society. And also societies in different countries can work together to share information, technology, and development the international standard. Lastly, we have some photos to share with you. We welcome you to visit Southeast University and join our next 5th conference. The conference will be announced later in June. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Youngjae Jo. I'm very happy to be able to introduce the current state of Korean MPS in this meeting, and I would like to apologize in advance for not being able to attend in person due to my personal circumstances. First of all, the overview of MPS status in Korea corresponds to the community interest groups level. The largest financial support for MPS is the government. Recently, various Korean governmental agencies are providing financial support for MPS research, and the key stakeholder is currently the Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy. This is the first representative project of 3D tissue chip in our country. Yes, sure. Training for new researchers is also very important in Korea. For example, the OK MPS Validation Center is going to create an institution to verify MPS produced in Korea. This center is also preparing some technical education program for MPS investigators. Now, special 3D tissue chip for skin and ocular model for irritation test has been developed in Korea. And about this question, as far as the R&D level, all of the areas were touched by MPS, but there is a scarce MPS used at the industrial level. Previous two tissue chips are certified as OECD TG by promoting international standardization with COPAM under the Korean FDA guidance. However, it is still applied only to cosmetics. And fortunately, there are several MPS companies based in Korea. And at the same time, the products from leading foreign MPS companies are also being introduced to Korea. In our country, MPS data are mostly spread to the public as a part of R&D activities. And these two groups are the major Korean R&D group for MPS. And the challenging point related to MPS in Korea are various, but I think a diverse research team is collaborating for the same purpose of MPS. For example, international cooperation is also being emphasized in our project, and Professor Nuri-John and I will be in charge of this project as co-PIs. This is the last question. And in our country, there are still many things that need to be overcome about MPS. And of course, having an international scientific society would be of great help. A similar symposium will be held for the first time in Korea soon. And I've already invited Dr. Taegul to visit Korea. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in South Korea. And thank you very much again for these great opportunities.
Hello, my name is Yasuyuki Sakai, working at the University of Tokyo, and also I am involved in the EMEDO MPS project and also the activity of the Japanese Society of Alternative Animal Experimentations. I'd like to briefly update MPS status in Japan. In Japan, researchers in industries such as pharmaceutical, food, cosmetic, and chemicals has begun to try to use MPS of both foreign and domestic companies' product with their strong expectation to better prediction. Last 5 years, EMEDO set up a national project and where we developed 3 types of new MPS. And also we are now discussing about setting up the Japanese MPS consortium. And the last 5 years, we have been focusing on liver, small intestine, kidney, and blood-brain barrier. And this EMEDO project continues next 5 years, where we need to focus on the extensive evaluation of the developed MPS in terms of the COUs proposed by the users. In the past 5 years in EMEDO project, we have been focusing on pharmacokinetics and safety issues. However, still the MPS has not yet been qualified in regulations. But through the MPS project, we developed a user-friendly, cost-effective 3 types of MPS, and also iPS-derived small intestinal cells. I'd like to talk about it in the next slide. This slide shows the 3 MPS developed. First one is peristaltic plate type 1. This is very easy to use, and I have been focusing on the co-culture of enterocyte and hepatocyte. And second one is microfluidic type, and there's a membrane, macroporous membrane, and both sides there's a perfusable compartment where we can strictly control the shear stress. And this device is suitable for the co-culture of kidney and endothelial cells. And the third one is quite a unique one. It employs microstarter-based pumping on-chip perfusion system and also direct oxygenation from the bottom. And this is very important to enhance the function of small intestine and liver cells. All of these 3 are cost-effective and have high usability. Now we can supply 3 types of MPS and iPS-derived small intestine cells. However, still, the understanding of the regulation agency, such as PMDA, is not enough. To overcome this, we need extensive evaluation against the specific COUs. And also, we strongly hope the progress and the development of the MPS World Summit, and we are very much happy to be deeply involved in that activity. Thank you.
On the MPS state of play in Australasia. So there's no overarching society. I propose that the Australasian Society for Clinical and Experimental Pharmacology and Toxicology is a suitable society to base MPS activities in terms of an annual conference in Australia. There are other groups, significantly smaller, Medical Advances Without Animals, and the Associated Australian Centre for Alternatives to Animal Research. The focus of these groups is more strongly on in silico methods than on MPS systems. There's also the ARC Centre for Personalised Therapeutics Technologies, which runs out to 2024. As is common, government, philanthropic and industry sources of funding are obtained to support MPS activities. And yes, there is training involved with the training of postdocs and PhDs at the ARC CPTT, but the scale and duration of this effort is limited. There's a more long-lived training available at the Melbourne Centre for Nanofabrication, which provides instruction in microfluidic design and fabrication, but not in MPS systems as such. There's considerable expertise in kidney on a chip and a major collaboration with Melissa Little, CEO of the Novo Nordisk Foundation Centre for Stem Cell Medicine. There's a range of different MPS type systems in use, focusing on cardiovascular safety regeneration, on genetic diseases using iPSCs, on improving predictive pharmacology, and on physiological emulation through the control of dynamic control of media. There's also main end users being research and industry philanthropic collaborators, but there are no patient groups using MPS at this stage. There has been a company formed in Australia, In Vitro Q, but it's not operational locally. It's operational in Asia and Germany, and they're rolling out a product called OncoPDO, oncology personalised organoids for predictive pharmacology of commonly used chemotherapy agents. In terms of industry, the Schott Minifab is a supplier of MPS-specific microfluidic devices, and there are other companies involved, such as Trajan, which is assisting the ARC CPTT in refining and commercialising its multiplex dynamic media formulation technology. We also have some challenges, of course, as we all do. There's some scepticism as to the impacts of MPS, how large and what is the lag time, so this can limit resources. But I think on the very positive side, the International MPSS will provide a profile and a bridge to the local cognate society, ASCEP, to be able to further promote these activities.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Grave from Brazilian Center for Validation of Alternative Methods, and I'm talking about MPS in Brazil, state of the art and challenge. Brackman is still preparing a survey to be sent to laboratories, industries, universities, and any institutions that use animal in experimentation in order to map the use and need for using alternative methods. MPS in Brazil is starting to be implemented. So as I know, we have only 2 government institutions and 1 startup working on it. The 2 government institutions are Fiocruz, unit in Rio de Janeiro, and unit in Paraná, that are 2 states of Brazil, and National Laboratory of Biosciences. And the main organ and systems that are being studied are related to cardiomyocytes, kidney, liver, neurons, and intestine. The main areas that are being developed in Brazil are basic research and other use for regulatory acceptance. Brazilian regulatory agents has no position about MPS up to now. I think that they are waiting for the full implementation of this technology in Brazil. and we still need international supplies for our studies. Funding is the main challenge for the development of MPS technology in Brazil, since up to now we had only one public notice by the Ministry of Science, Technology and Information, and one project for the inner employees in field crews. That was an innovation project using organ ownership. I think that an international society would be very helpful for Brazilian researchers, as well as an event like this one, since we may keep in contact with the development of technologies and people that are really using these technologies, and maybe start a partnership. So I'd like to thank everybody for being here in this Congress, and I'd like to say a special thank for my crew, for my group in Brackman, and for the collaborators that made possible this presentation. Okay, and you can find the email and the web page of Brackman. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, well, now we will ask all the panelists to go up on the stage, and we will make a short round of introductions. And please, when you introduce yourself, also you add something you would like to add to the video you just showed. So I will start with me. I'm Lena Smirnova. I'm at Center for Alternative to Animal Testing in Johns Hopkins. I am chairing this session together with Dan.
Dan Tagley, welcome again to this panel. So we'd ask the panelists to introduce themselves, and perhaps if you can provide one or two sentences, something that you wish you had said on the video that you weren't able to cover.
Yes, thank you, Dan. I'm Megan LaFollette from the North American 3Rs Collaborative, speaking for the United States. And I think, certainly learned a lot during this conference and have some updated opinions. Just one that I want to bring to the forefront is that I could maybe change in that video now is to not become overly focused on the so-called regulatory acceptance. Certainly it is important, but there is huge scope and potential and a lot of other challenges to work on in terms of qualification, validation, internal portfolio decision-making. And as I did say in my presentation, the FDA is already accepting MPS data for IND and efficacy. So although this issue is important, I think we should not become too overly focused on it.
Hello, my name is Yasuki Sakai, coming from Tokyo, Japan. And as I said in my video, and also probably you already feel the same thing, but the great success of the first World Summit, MPS Summit, I very much, actually I personally studied a lot about not only the scientific part, but also the implementation, particularly pharmaceutical area. And as one was a representative of Japanese colleagues, I'd like to, I may say that Japanese researchers are from now on strongly be involved in the world activity of MPS, including in the future, we want to host the World Summit in Japan in the future. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Otávio Presbrave. I'm the coordinator of Brackman, Brazilian Center for Validation of Alternative Methods. And as I told in my presentation, Brazil is starting to use MPS. And what's good for us is that we have a structure for validation and become an official alternative method to have 3 entities related to this, which is the CONSEA, which is the National Council of Control of Animal Experimentation. It's responsible for officializing alternative methods in Brazil. We have the BRACMAM, and we have the RENAMA, which is the National Network on Alternative Methods. So I think that the efforts of these three entities will push up these studies and the development of MPS in Brazil.
Hello, I'm Alistair Stewart from University of Melbourne and Director of the ARC Centre for Personalised Therapeutics Technologies, which is a training centre with 10 RHD candidates, and we look to sustainable training, and this is one of the challenges that is faced, that there isn't a national focused fund like the NIH NCATS. We were privileged to have Dan Tagle visit us and lecture and assist our training program at its outset in 2018. But we need a more sustainable approach. I would say, with regard to the regulation, that In Vitro Q presented a test case to the regulator in Australia called the TGA, and in that respect, the TGA was able to identify a category, a regulatory category for the individualised patient prediction of chemotherapy, which should not be used. That was their particular model, to use organoids to detect chemotherapy, which would be ineffective. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peter Loskill. I'm from the University of Tübingen, but here representing Eurox. And I think one of the things I didn't mention that much in the video is that we are a grassroots-driven academic society. We obviously also have a lot of people from pharma and are targeting the application of these systems in pharma. But one of the points I'm trying to stress all the time is to not only look at pharma for end users. I think the technology has a huge potential looking in biomedical academic research. This is where the majority of animal studies are run. This is where there is potential for huge impact. And this is also something where, let's say, regulatory aspects are not that big of a topic. So instead of focusing everything on regulators and putting all the pressure on regulators, I think we should put pressure on the scientists to use these systems.
Thank you, Peter. My name is Ben Maoz. I'm from Tel Aviv University in Israel. First of all, I would like to thank again the organizers for creating this amazing event and also for inviting me. Also, for me, it's very nice to be in this panel because I actually see there are people who had to take longer flights than I am to get here. So it was actually nice. I will not repeat what I said in the presentation over there. I will just say two additional things. That although Israel is a very small country, right? We are about 10 million people. I think that if you think capita-wise, we're the #1 in the world, the amount of groups that are actually working on organs on a chip per capita. Maybe the Netherlands is basically the same, but we have more than 20 groups that actually work on organs on a chip. We have a number of companies, I think at least 3, and we have a number of governmental initiatives. So organs on a chip is something that is nicely developed and in Israel, and I encourage you all to come, visit, and to contact. We established the Organ on a Chip Society, so if you need some contacts, a specific contact, please let me know, email me, and I'll be more than happy to help. Thanks.
Thank you. Hi. Hi, my name is Nuli John. Yeah, actually, I was supposed to be here on the first day, but my flight got canceled and I had to arrive a day late. But anyway, I'm sitting here in place of Dr. Cho, who is an MD, a practicing MD, so he couldn't make it due to some scheduling reasons. Well, first of all, I think Korea, has a very high number of microfluidics and organ-on-a-chip groups. I think as high as Netherlands or Israel, I think. We have a lot of few startups. One was here, and we have one company in Korea that was also acquired by merged M&A by a bigger pharma type of company. So we have a really vibrant community, and I think we also have a lot of enthusiastic medical MDs who are interested in this technology. I think one thing that we lack is the government support. So we've been doing our research on our own and using small individual grants, but I think hopefully we will, we just started getting bigger grants, but I think this type of collaborations with international, I think society and other researchers will be very fruitful and will lead to more collaborations and more success in this field. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a nice round of introduction. So what we saw from the video and also from your descriptions now, we see that there are differences between different regions and countries, and there are also things which are in common, obviously. So, but my first question would be about the difference. So what do you think the driver force of these differences? Is it the availability of the technologies, availability of fundings, or it's maybe just the focus of this particular country or the region in their focus on health perspective? So, Peter, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think, I can, having worked in the US and in Europe, I can compare at least US and Europe very well. And I think it really depends on what is the starting point. And I think here in the US, you had the program, which started everything, and where you have a huge funding opportunity and driven by governmental institutions. And I think this is very unique to the US. I think and now nowhere in the world we have that. In Europe, we never had a program really on organ on a chip. We had some countries like the Netherlands going really forward, establishing national societies, national institutions, and this then was driven to basically, as I mentioned, more of in a grassroots style. So the academics came together, we formed a society, and we're trying to thereby form the field. So I think that it really depends on what is the outer framework. If you have a funding agency like in the US, which is forward-looking, this will give you a totally different situation.
Yeah, I can tell my perspective about Israel in that sense, that I think in Israel it's a combination of two things. First of all, because it's a small country and everybody knows everybody, so people that are working with tissue engineering they talk with people that do microfluidics, which they talk with people who do sensors. So the part of the integration is pretty straightforward. So when everything started, and people that are working for a lot of time with microfluidics, but they never had any experience with tissue engineering, they just go to the next university, which is 30 minutes by car, and they collaborate. So it was a very natural thing. The second thing is that also governmental initiatives started, both for alternatives for animals, but also for things related more to microfluidic chips. And the third thing is that you have a number of pharmaceutical companies that everything started. For them, it was a great opportunity to try also to invest, instead of creating their own units in their own pharmaceutical companies, basically to invest in the academia to do sponsored research. And basically, it will help them to push the field a little bit forward, so that afterwards they can have a benefit from this. So I think these are basically the three reasons, at least in Israel.
Well, I think that all factors mentioned are very important, and I think that they differ from country to country. It depends on the stage of development in terms of size and financial of each countries. And perhaps I would introduce another factor, that is how much the NRA, for example, of a country believe or not in the power of an alternative method, or how much the NRA agree with or still believe that the animal experimentation is too important. I think that all factors I mentioned are very important, and I would include this also.
Okay, thank you. Ben actually answered also my second question about what is the effort to synergize the activity around MPS in the region. So it's basically everybody should know everyone. This is the answer. I will open to the podium, to the audience.
Questions from the audience to a particular panelist or the whole panel? Anyone? If not, we'll go to the next question.
Yeah, I have no questions? Okay. Then.
Thank you very much, all. How do you see that global collaboration on MPS would help to advance the acceptance of the technology as a possible alternative for future translational and personalized medicine? Thank you.
The whole panel.
Yeah. Global questions.
Alistair.
Coming from the most remote and perhaps the second smallest country in population terms, I think we need the muscle of an international organization such as has been created to get leverage from our funding agencies and our government. And so this global collaboration is absolutely key to raising the profile of MPS in Australia, such that the sporadic funding that comes is easier to secure.
Well, I think that MPS, although is in the state of advancement around the world, I think this is still a puzzle. So we need to collaborate each other countries in order to complete all this puzzle and maybe harmonize the methodology and processes. I think this would be an answer to your question.
If I may add just to what was just said, is that first of all, I completely agree that such events are crucial to make it better. First of all, the networking, but also to see what other people are doing and to create communities. So definitely this is number one. I think that there are two other parameters. First of all, that the companies that were presented, outside over there or over there, they should reach all the other countries, right? So to make it more accessible, at least technology-wise, that not all the people will need to start and to invent the wheel. And they will bring this technology that will be easier to use. And the third thing, I think that it's extremely important to see whenever you want to collaborate with someone, that you do it in a smart way, that it will be really a synergy, because two groups that are doing the same thing to trying to bring cells from one side of the globe to the other side and to try to integrate the cells that they're doing with the cells that they're working, it's a bit challenging. So it needs to be really a group that one is creating a platform and the other one is doing the biology, or one is doing the modeling and the other one is doing the data. So you need to find the right collaboration and the way of collaboration. This is my input in this.
And I would just add that agree with everything the panelists have said, but also just having those key early adopters, wherever they are in the world, who are willing to take the leap, that are willing to put in the efforts, whether they're academics, whether they're pharma, whether they're companies. And the more that the international society can champion them, can lift them up, can help show them, because ultimately we're humans, we're social species. We want to see, we want to follow the trends, we want to fit in, and we're quite risk averse as well. And so the more that we can champion and learn and be realistic about where the challenges are and what was necessary to overcome those challenges.
Maybe adding one more thing. I mean, why do we need to be global? Because the challenge we're dealing with is global. So the health challenges, COVID was one of the perfect examples. We all have the same challenges, and also the end users of the technology are typically global big companies. And now I'm contradicting to what I was saying earlier. It's not only pharma as end user, but also the scientists. It's a global community, so it is absolutely natural to address this challenge also in a global manner.
I think we had one more question in the back.
Let's meet halfway.
I was dreaming. Thanks. Yeah, Claudia Gärtner from Micromobility Chip Shop. We are not doing such fancy research as you that implementing the biology on chip or microsystems. We are a fabrication company, and there my questions come from who or how do you implement the easy engineering part to make your system afterwards happening? We saw this in a diagnostic world where the quantities of consumables are much higher. So how to address the fabrication? And the second question would be, we had this funding topic, and on the podium, we have 3 countries which we have partners in German funded projects where we have bilateral projects running. Are there other opportunities? Brazil is open, Israel is open, and Korea is open for such small funded project to broaden this way that we get small project for the small companies involved running. So 2 questions there, fabrication and small funded projects.
Okay, I will start. Regarding the second question, funded the projects. So specifically, I can obviously answer for Israel. We do have projects that are, as you said, like Israel, Germany, for example. So you have the DEEP, the DevGay, you have the GIF as well. So you have many different specific opportunities, but you also have a lot from we have now in Israel. They develop a really nice concept of the innovation authority, where you can come for projects that are specifically between academia and industry, because they want to make more things that will become industry and startups. So you can find a specific group in the academia that you will try to do something that will become a product or IP or something like this, and you can get a lot of funding for these as well. So this is regarding specifically in Israel. I didn't completely understood the first question, I must say, but it was something regarding integration with the chips or integration with the biology in the chips, or if someone else.
I think it's microfabrication.
Yeah, exactly. How you have the application and but also the fabrication. Is this of interest, and how to embed? For instance, we were talking a lot about standardization. Can we drive this, for instance, in easing fabrication?
So obviously there are a number of companies, and if there's something that you want to do easily, so obviously there is the company that you're representing. There are other companies as well that some of them are doing custom-made chips, and some they have their own standard chips. So obviously it can be something that people can use and talk with the international suppliers. But specifically also if you want to have a custom chip, so there are specifically in Israel, there are a number of groups that are really good with microfluidics. So you can definitely talk with them and to see if they can fabricate something for you. But then the question is the quantity, right? Like if it's something that you need a lot from, then obviously it becomes a little bit more sophisticated or need to be addressed. Hope I answered the question. Anyone?
Okay. So regarding the funding, do you think there are opportunities to work with your government funding agencies to create a program across the globe similar to the Human Frontiers in Science, where investigators from different countries work together and are funded by their own respective country, but it's all synergized and done collaboratively?
Was it for something? Was it for your general?
For any country that you seem that your government agencies or funding agencies are receptive to that idea?
So for me, the simple answer is yes, definitely yes. The government and the Minister of Science and Ministry of Technology are extremely open for such initiatives. And they have recently they launched this $40 million initiative for bioconvergence and these kind of things. So for Israel, yes, for sure.
The same happens in Brazil. Basically, our fundings come from the government, from federal stage, and sometimes from the states. And it's possible for us also to make collaborative studies with industries and other institutions. But basically, our fundings come from the Ministry of Science, Health, and Information, and Minister of Health.
this is a shameless advertisement. In Australia, there is an R&D tax credit, which means that every dollar spent earns 43% back. And so this does tend to facilitate industry collaboration. There are also schemes in place for linkage grants from the Australian Research Council that leverage government investment. And we have a National Research Infrastructure Fund, and in that grouping, there is a therapeutics innovation group, and certainly I'm going to be lobbying that group to see if we can set up training and funding streams for MPS systems, because I think we do need something that's more systematic than the sporadic successes that happen at the open competitions in the NHMRC, the National Health and Medical Research Council.
As far as the international collaboration funding, I think I had I still have a grant with the previous person, Claudia, but it's Korea, Germany grant, but it's open over whole, bio spectrum or others. And then we were just lucky enough to get the grant and then use the funding to work on this. And that also kind of on this MPS project, but that also kind of gets into the question of fabrication, because not a whole lot of people have fabrication knowledge. And I think nowadays there are so many designs that's being made up for their own applications. But I think as the field matures, I think maybe as an international society, maybe we should have come up with a format like SBS type of format or something. Probably it'll be the web plate format, right? Because it has to be compatible with all the equipment that's out there. But in order to make those things, I think the largest hurdle for us was the cost of making custom chips with a polystyrene or injection molding houses. So I think we need to maybe, as a field, come up with some kind of put an effort into establishing a standard so that maybe it can be either plug and play or at least have some basic units that can be used across different areas.
Maybe I can add to this last point. It goes a little bit back from Dan's initial question, actually. But in Europe, we have started a process on getting a standardization focus group. And Dries van der Meer, I don't know if he's still here, is heading that. He's back there waving. And because this is an extremely important aspect. And I think this is something that the global community should do together to standardize. And to also define where standardization can be done, is necessary, and where it can be done without limiting innovation, because this is always the balance. But very briefly also to Dan's question, I think this is one of the biggest or most important things you can collaborate only if you have funding for collaborative projects. And I know, we had this discussion many times. I know all the efforts you're taking, and I think this we have to now support you as a global community. We have managed in Europe to have a good funding agency that funds all the different countries, and this should be something to try to do on a worldwide scale.
Hello, I'm Zorae Zadefar from this institute. I'm seeing a panel of all these leaders coming from around the world. I just came to my mind, there are a lot of diseases and health conditions that we see disparity among different ethnic backgrounds and genetic backgrounds. And seeing this panel, I think it's a great opportunity that there would be global collaborations. They have all these systems and you have access to your own population with the ethnic background. And we can, working together, we can make that database to have better knowledge of how our ethnic background is contributing to that. And I wanted to see, if, as leaders, how you see that coming along in the future. And if there will be funding, for instance, I don't see anyone from African countries here, but they are one of the populations that in most of the cases, they're more susceptible to a lot of diseases. And maybe at the moment, they don't have a lot of funding or the technology is not much established, but together, maybe there's opportunities to help kind of universities in those less privileged countries to also have access to the technology to study.
Yeah, I think this is an extremely important point. I mean, we are from around the world sitting here, but we're missing in big parts of the world. And I think this should be one of the big focuses to help these areas where there is not, and we've seen there's even in the representation here, there's a different level of research on, or the field in itself is in a different level. But we should try to get a global community, and this includes all the continents and countries that are not yet involved here. So I think this is one of the most important things. Also, and again, now I'm referring again to pharmaceutical companies. I think this is also something, talking to pharma companies, one of the challenges they are now more and more experiencing to see to not only develop drugs for Caucasian males, but to develop drugs that work all around the world. Yeah.
I think I want to build on the less privileged parts of the world. Maybe when we have a global society, could have an initiative to support some training for less developed countries. So trainees could start from there, the first train, they know about the technology, go home and then establish. And this should be like much of industrial, probably driven or funded. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to add and basically say that same thing, in that I think an international society could do great aims to have a, you know, whatever you want to call it, developing country, underrepresented ethnicity groups, whatever, and have funds for those individuals, for those countries, so that we are bringing them to the table, that we're not necessarily trying to speak for them, and supporting growth within their own country as much as possible. You know, we have to be realistic, but we should also be doing the best that we can. So again, thank you for the question asker for bringing that up.
If I can just add one more point, is that I completely agree that we need to push forward the technology, but we also need to keep in mind that the technology itself is expensive, right? So if you also don't have the funds to use it, it is also a challenge. So if we will come and we will have free training all over the world and we'll give free chips for all over the world, it will be currently still more expensive than just to use regular well plates, right? So we also need to make sure that if we want that every lab will be able to work with organs on a chip, we need to make sure that the price is competitive to places that it's not, you know, that they don't have the funds to support this technology. So this is just, I think, a point we need to keep in mind.
Okay, we have last 2 minutes. I will add to the education question. We also need to think about to educate our youngest, the new coming researchers and young investigators. So somebody, maybe you can reflect what is happening in your region in terms of the education of new generation of scientists about MPS. Yes.
Okay, actually, I'm working at the university. So even in Japan, I feel every year students who are getting interested in 3 arts are increasing, even in engineering school. So, but they are still young and naive and don't know everything. So that's why, I think we need, it's a good opportunity to show a kind of roadmap, a scientific roadmap. It's easy, understandable manner. It's very important for young students. So it's a very good opportunity because we have a very quick advancement of the MPS technology, and it's a very good opportunity to expand the in vitro system in the every sector of the society, and probably if we think about the future, such young student. It's very important. Of course, it's very important, and we need to guide in a more scientific manner to show a kind of roadmap.
Yeah, I can just add that, at least from my knowledge in the United States, as well as many places, you know, training of young investigators takes place within the context of a specific project. So I do know there were at least 12 different universities that had invited speakers at this at this summit. And so we certainly have a lot of universities that have those programs, but I don't know how well those programs are known to the wider young population, you know, MPS, even to the public. Whenever I talk about what I'm doing or where I'm going, people have no idea what I'm talking about. So I think, you know, having the International Society focus, you know, on that student population, maybe having a place where grad student positions are being posted, maybe having courses, funding for the students as well, but also focusing some on that public outreach so people even know what these are, because if they don't even know they exist, it's hard to imagine. They kind of will just come by them by chance instead of taking that initiative. So public outreach, I think, is also going to be an important factor.
Anything to add? We are perfect on the top of the hour of this session. I will probably allow one more question from the audience if there are any. If not, then we will move to this closing ceremony in 5 minutes. Thank you very much for attending this session.
Yeah, thank you, panelists. Thank you.